Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us for a new PennyWise podcast. I'm Teri Barr from Lee Enterprises, and so happy to have you here with us. We've got the topic today. We're going to dive into the idea of increases in the interest rate. And I've talked to a lot of people that say this has them a little bit worried. But did you know there are some things you can do? So that's what we're going to learn about today. Kimberly Palmer, a personal finance expert with NerdWallet, is here. Kimberly, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Teri.
Let me ask you the first and probably one of the biggest questions. Why is the Federal Reserve raising interest rates, especially right now?
Well, the simplest answer is really that, as everyone knows and feels, prices are up.
Oh,
Inflation
yes.
is high. And this is the Fed's way of really slowing that down. That's the goal, is to make sure inflation doesn't get out of control.
Okay. So basically, it's about slowing the economy down, curbing inflation. And as you said, the cost of everything is up. So put those all together, and yeah, people are a little bit worried, but there are some things we should do instead of worrying, right? Take some action.
Sure.
What if
Exactly.
you are a borrower? What should you do?
Well, if you are someone who is borrowing money, and the most common situation is with credit cards, for example, that's where you're really going to feel it, because with credit cards, that's variable rate debt. And that means that when interest rates go up, you'll be paying more for that debt. It becomes more expensive. So really the most important move you can make as a borrower is to look at all of your debt, figure out what is variable rate, and then make a plan for paying it off. If you have some room in your budget to make some extra payments, that will really help, because credit card debt in particular is just going to become more expensive as rates rise.
Oh boy. Okay. Okay, that's a good idea. Check that out. What if you're lucky enough to be a saver right now?
If you are a saver, you're in a really good position, because just as rates are rising, the yields on savings accounts also are rising. And in fact, with some online high yield savings accounts, we're already seeing those rates go up. So that means it's a really good time to shop around, make sure your money in savings is earning as much as it can be as those yields are going up, because you really want to make sure your money is working for you, and it's going to start earning more as we see these rates rise.
Oh, that's good news out of
Yeah.
all of this. Okay. Okay, so what should you look at if you are already a homeowner?
If you're already a homeowner, you're really in a pretty good position, because the vast majority of mortgages are at a fixed rate. That means the amount you pay each month is not going to change regardless of what happens with interest rates. Where it gets more interesting is if you are thinking of buying a home, you're starting to go down that road, you might want to think about speeding that process up so you can lock in as low a rate as possible. Of course, we're already seeing rates rise, and we expect them to continue to do so. And so you never want to buy a home just to get a good interest rate. But if you are already thinking about it, it's a good time to lock in as low a rate as possible, since we are in an environment where we expect them just to keep going up.
Oh, wow. Okay. What about if you have a personal loan?
Well, personal loans are interesting because some are fixed rate and some are variable rate. So it's a really good idea to make sure you understand exactly what you have. And if you do have a variable rate loan, it means that just as with credit cards, those payments will get higher. And so you want to try, if you can, to pay it off as soon as possible. At least make sure you have the room in your budget to make those payments going forward.
Okay, so that could be a variable rate. People don't
It could
necessarily
be.
with a personal loan lock those rates in. Okay.
Exactly.
Oh boy, and here's another one. Student loans. What should you be looking for right now?
Well, student loans are also interesting, because there's two broad categories. You have federal student loans, which are at a fixed rate, but then with private student loans, those actually can be variable rate. And so you want to check to see, exactly what you have. And if you do have a variable rate student loan, again, you might want to see if you can pay it off a little bit quicker, knowing it's going to become more expensive. At least plan on the fact that those payments are going to be higher.
Okay. Now, what else? There's got to be other things we can be thinking about right now rather than worrying, thinking about and planning for ourselves. What else do you think?
I think right now it's really all about taking back some semblance of control at a time when things just feel so uncertain. And so, one way you can do that is to take a really hard look at your budget and see if there are places you can trim, because the more you can scale back your own spending, it gives you a little more wiggle room to compensate for some of these higher prices and also higher rates if your loans are getting more expensive. You want to make sure you can handle that going forward. So, just trimming your budget where you can. And then also, it's a really good time to ask for a raise because a lot of employers, they know that, prices are up. The labor market is healthy. And so it's a good time to ask for a raise. So that's something to consider.
I love that. That's a good way to sort of end. But I do want to ask you, what do you think is the bottom line to all of this with the rise in interest rates and the great tips you've given us to try to work through this?
I think the bottom line is that right now is such a good time to just take a close look at an overview of all of your debt. Make sure you really understand it so you know which ones will become more expensive, which ones are at a fixed rate, and then you can prioritize what you can try to shuffle a little bit more money toward to pay it off faster. It's also a good time to use an online calculator for debt payoff so you can see, oh, if I pay a little bit more down today, I'll pay it off sooner. It can give you that extra motivation.
Oh, you always have such great tips, Kimberly. Thank you so much for helping us maybe worry a little bit less and try to get control of all of this.
I hope so. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Helping you save money, that's for sure. Kimberly Palmer, she's a personal finance expert with NerdWallet. And I'm Teri Barr, host of PennyWise podcast from Lee Enterprises. Always happy to have you along with us. See you next time.